Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We have another episode of PodTC today. Something a little unique because you're going to be hearing from a couple of voices today from Bowling Green State University. They are the nation's only life design program, from what I understand. It's really an interesting topic that we're going to drill into from a couple of different perspectives. So I thought that it would be best to have two people on today, and really good suggestion from the colleagues at Bowling Green State University. I am being joined today by Adrienne Ausdenmoore. She is the Assistant Vice President and Executive Director of the Life Design Program, and Zachary Schmidt, who is the Coordinator of Transfer and International Admissions, also BGSU. How are you guys doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, how we usually start with this is that we would love to hear more about you two specifically as, personal and professionals. Obviously, you work at BGSU, and I've given the titles, but anything that you'd like to share about maybe where you went to school or anything else that you'd like to share for the membership. Adrienne, if we want to start with you.
Thanks. Yes. So I'm Adrienne Ausdenmoore, and I am the Assistant Vice President and Executive Director of the Radville Center for College and Life Design here at BGSU, which is one of two endowed centers that are part of the Holistic Life Design Program. I have been here at BGSU for almost exactly 3 years in this role. Prior to that, I had lived in Dayton for almost 20 years, went to undergrad at the University of Dayton, and was a part of that staff team there for quite a bit before I came here. Had been doing a little bit of life design there. As you'll hear me say later, life design and the original curriculum started at Stanford quite a while ago, and there are lots of universities that have adopted elements of that since then, and feel really fortunate that we are able to do it at such a scale here at BGSU, and that I'm able to be part of that.
Great, thanks. Zach?
Yeah, my name is Zach Schmidt, and I am currently serving as the coordinator of transfer and international admissions here at BGSU. I've been with the university for about 3 years as well, so same as Adrienne. And my journey to higher education has been a little bit unique because I did come from a local government background and also an education background. So I have over 350 hours of in-class teaching experience. So I think that kind of sparked my desire to work in higher education. I also have a really personal connection with what I do because I am a former transfer student myself. So I've gotten to experience firsthand some of the challenges that students face when transitioning from institution to institution, like transferring credits, building a sense of community, and navigating new environments.
And you can tell you used to work in government because that was such a polished answer, Zach. Just messing with you. So how we're going to kind of look at today is that, like I said, we've got more the internal look from inside the life design program, but also Zach does work on the transfer admission side. So how that can be interlaced more or less on how we talk to community college students or, horizontal transfer students and such. So we're going to bounce back between the two perspectives. We'll just keep it fun, right? So the first question's for Adrienne. How did the life design program come about at BGSU? What's kind of its main goals? And then how did you get involved? Obviously coming in from Dayton and such, we'd love to hear that perspective.
Thanks. Yeah, so as I mentioned briefly in my introduction, life design was a curriculum and a course that actually started at Stanford in the early 2000s, quite a while ago. And what it stemmed from was this idea that design thinking was already a concept in Silicon Valley, in industry, which is a creative problem-solving framework looking at sort of the messy, wicked problems of the world, industry, et cetera. And so Bill Burnett and Dave Evans, who were teaching at Stanford at the time, thought, what if we could take these same concepts and apply it to our students' lives, in particular at the time, students that are getting ready to graduate. So how do we take these elements of empathy and really defining what's important to you and how to navigate challenging problems and prototype solutions, how might we apply that to our students and their lives? And so that continued, and they released a book in about, I think, 2015, 2016 called Designing Your Life. And so that is how things started here at BGSU, because as President Rogers was stepping from provost to the presidency, he was working with the cabinet here and faculty and staff around this idea of a strategic plan called Forward, this idea of redefining student success. And so how might we as a university really revisit what it means to send our students and our graduates out into the world? The idea of being life and career ready. And that happened at about the same time that he came across this book, was curious about it, wondered, hey, this might be a framework that might apply to what we're trying to do here at BGSU. The folks here did some investigation and discovered actually there's a training that Stanford does for universities. There are other universities that have been trying this out and implementing courses. And so it sort of stemmed from there. And as a university, BGSU has been really, really fortunate to really lean into it in a really holistic way. So whether board of trustees, president's office, academic colleges, admissions, enrollment, we've been really fortunate over the last 5 years or so. I would say about 5 years ago was when things were formally starting here at Bowling Green to think about how do we help our students be really intentional about their college experience. And so if we think about the macro level goals of life design, it is about how do we empower our students to design their college experience and also to think really intentionally about their lives and their careers beyond BGSU. And so we do that through 5 main focus areas. And then I'll talk a little bit about how I got involved. So those 5 main areas as a campus, we've committed to students. We want to help you maximize your academic experience. You are here to get a degree. So let's make sure that you're able to take advantage of all that is available to you in that realm, while also being able to prioritize your well-being. So physical, mental, spiritual, if applicable, financial well-being. We all know that those things outside of the classroom really impact how someone shows up in the classroom. So how do we make that a part of our framework as well? We talk a lot about building connections. So connections with peers, connections with faculty, connections with staff and support folks across campus, but then also starting to build connections outside of the university, whether those are professional connections, alumni, et cetera, because we want our students to get a jump start on their career. So how are they starting to build that network so that they're able to prototype, try out, learn more about the career path they're interested in? And then the 5th piece of it, we call this our life design dashboard, is around purpose. So not having everything figured out, but being intentional about why are you in college? Why are you at BGSU? And how do we really help you make the most of that? So that's really the main goal as we continue to implement this program here. I got involved when I started here at BGSU 3 years ago, but I had actually been prototyping a number of life design initiatives at my previous institution at the University of Dayton, and had been fortunate enough to be part of a global network of folks in higher ed who were looking to infuse elements of life design and design thinking into vocational wayfinding, into student success. Sometimes it's done more from a career lens. And I just personally really found that took the core parts of my path and journey. I had started as a graphic design major. I was involved in costume design, very involved in theater. That led into arts marketing and communications, which led into design thinking, which led into vocational wayfinding. And so similar to my own path, just want to be able to support students in that same idea of skill building, to be intentional and feel empowered to navigate whatever comes their way.
Awesome. So I feel like, so I guess just like a quick follow-up question, obviously when you're at Dayton, you are kind of building some of these pieces, but at BGSU, obviously there's this full-blown program that really allows you to do that. So was it like BGSU was putting it together and you were kind of like, obviously you applied for a job and everything and you were here from the inception, or was it kind of something that you got to, and maybe it's a dual folded question of, they knew that they needed the right person for the job, but kind of, in higher ed, we always talk about like building the ship as it's flying or building the plane as it's flying. Do you feel like that's kind of what you've been doing here, that like maybe the shell was there, but you've got to build some of the specific pieces?
Sure. So in 2020, the university made the investment in a larger scale training for about 60 faculty and staff here at BGSU. And there had been some prototypes prior to that. So there had been some pilot first year seminar courses that some folks had taught and started integrating some of the concepts. There had been like a winter term kind of weekend intensive that they had done with some students, and the training on campus, they were ramping up a lot of energy and synergy around this framework, and then COVID happened. So in the midst of a global pandemic, BGSU continued with it. So they hired 6 life design coaches, which is one of the core roles of our program here. So those 6 folks were already BGSU employees that had been part of the project and some of the initial working groups. And so there had been a lot of pre-work prior to that. Launching anything in the middle of a global pandemic is certainly a challenge, but I believe it really positioned BGSU up for success and really put us in a really strong place to now be ready to navigate some of the factors that we're all dealing with in higher ed, and the value proposition of higher ed and demographic cliffs and whatever that may be.
Yeah.
So in 2020, they started with 6 life design coaches. In 2021, added 6 more life design coaches.
Wow.
The program fell under the provost office. So it was tied into kind of an academic affairs, student affairs, blended piece of that. And so at the time I joined 3 years ago, the president's office and the provost's office had made the decision, we need a signature office and department to really focus on this, with a leadership role that is solely focused on life design and what that means for us here at BGSU. So now we are part of our division of student engagement and success. So what we're doing is really well aligned with all of our student success efforts here. At the same time, shortly after I started, we were fortunate enough to announce some pretty significant gifts that endowed 2 centers. So that created the Radville Center, as well as reframed our Career Center into our Colleen Hub for career design and connections. And so that timing of those 2 endowed centers then sort of elevated us into the next phase of the program. So certainly we continue to prototype and adjust and build strategies as we go. A lot of groundwork was done before I was part of the equation here, and that's something I feel really fortunate around the buy-in and the work and the folks all across campus that had been involved. And so as we sort of wrap up the first 5 years of this and move into our next 5-year phase, it's a great time to be thinking about what does life design phase 2 look like at BGSU, and how do we continue to scale and grow?
Very cool. Well, thanks for all the answers to that. We're going to flip for a second. We're going to go to Zach, because Zach, obviously, he told us he's a former transfer student, kind of where he's coming from. But specifically, Zach, was it just that you were outside of BGSU, you saw the job posting for working with transfer students, were you already at BGSU and then saw that there was the ability to transition into the role? More or less, how did you get involved with working with transfer students?
Yeah, so I mean, my journey to working with transfer students, like I had mentioned, was a mix of personal and professional experiences. Being a transfer student myself and a former teaching assistant, those core experiences really stuck with me. But when I got into local government, I started to provide large-scale trainings to poll workers, to support staff, and different staff that we had in the office over at the Board of Elections where I worked. And when I saw the opportunity to work directly with transfer students, I saw it as an opportunity to make an impact, just make a real change in the system. And these experiences that I had prior to this job gave me the skills to connect with people and navigate complex systems. And BGSU had a really robust transfer office prior to me getting here. But I think that, my unique insight through that local government and teaching experience helped me kind of formalize the essential skill sets necessary to work in transfer, because I think you'd agree, Jonathan, that you can work pretty much anywhere in higher admissions, higher ed admissions, or in local government. Transfer is a unique beast. It's got its own set of problems, and you really have to get to know that market to be successful in it. And I wanted to be able to bridge the gap for students and create a smoother and more supportive transition process, something that I got when I came back to Bowling Green, but I didn't necessarily get when I was transferring out at one point to go to a community college to get some additional credits. So,
Gotcha. Yeah, I would certainly echo, a lot of that, and why groups like OTC exist and why we all talk to one another and stuff to give each other support, because it can be a unique beast and every student is different. So some of the smartest people I know are transfer admissions people. So I know I'm a bit partial because I am one, but I meet all you guys on the road and y'all rock. So definitely agree. So all right, we're going to flip back. So Adrienne, how has the Life Design program impacted students' academic and personal lives since its inception?
Yeah, so we have been really fortunate to see the many ways that Life Design and the program in all its different facets and approaches has been able to impact our students. I think just a couple of fundamental things. So one of the core parts of the Life Design program at BGSU is a 1-credit course called BGSU 1910. And we have since infused the curriculum into other courses within specific majors and programs. But just looking at that one course in particular, the target is to have as many students who can to take it in their first or second semester here at BGSU. And the idea there is, how are we helping to equip our students with a set of mindsets, some methodologies, while also connecting them to some key resources and tools and understanding of the college experience, so that they can feel intentional about how their college experience aligns with their personal goals, whether that's career, life, the broader sense of that. While also building some connections with peers and building some creative problem solving skills at the same time. And so when I think about those three pieces, whether you're getting it in a course, whether you're getting it in one-on-one coaching, which we have available to any BGSU student, whether you're getting it through a workshop, or how it's infused in our Leadership Institute, or where it might show up in a different course or experience, the idea there is to help our students have that toolkit, that toolbox of skills and ability to navigate. So when we think about the mindsets of Life Design, we're talking about collaborate, being able to reframe problems, being curious, taking action, embracing the process, and sharing their story. And those mindsets are part of the core elements of the Life Design framework, broadly speaking. And I think they sound like really simple phrases, but to help our students actionize that, whether it's someone coming into college for the first time or a transfer student, it's really kind of giving you that baseline toolkit that then, no matter what your major, no matter what your college experience might look like, if you're going into those next steps with that in your pocket, right, then you're more ready and prepared. And I think, we just had our first full cohort start to graduate. So the students that started in 2020 are, now graduating. And I think some of it is that long game, right? It's the long-term impact. It may not always be it fixed a problem right in the minute, but being able to start hearing from alumni how they've integrated the things that they've learned over the past 2, 3, 4 years and into their lives beyond BGSU is really rewarding.
That would be super rewarding. And it's always maybe not the most fun moment, but it's like you finally get to see the conception from start to end when you start graduating students through a certain program or pathway in our cases or anything like that. So that has to be super exciting, and hopefully some of them will keep in contact so you can get, even if it's anecdotal, some feedback on what really went well, maybe what they would like to have had that would have helped them pass. That's always invaluable as people that are working in the program itself. So awesome. Zach, we're going to flip back to you. Kind of what sparked the idea for this podcast is that you and I were at Sinclair Community College, and you had a pamphlet for Life Design, and you're like, hey, have you guys, ever talked about anything like this, or have you heard about this program? And I said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I looked through the pamphlet that you gave me when I had some downtime, and it sounded super interesting. So I know that you come prepared to fairs because you gave me that pamphlet, obviously. So how do you introduce the life design program to potential transfer students, and what is the typical response that you might get from a student?
It's funny that you bring up the fair because I probably introduced life design to you like I do a lot of people who are in higher ed,
Yeah.
which is that I usually say that an academic advisor is more like a compass. They're going to send you in the right direction, right? You're going to meet with them twice a semester. They're going to give you your general guidelines to get forward through your degree. Whereas life design coaches are more like a GPS. They're going to show you all the opportunities along the way. So just kind of talking about that, I usually introduce life design in their program to potential transfer students as a holistic approach to planning their academic, personal, and professional lives. I explained that it's not just about choosing a major, mapping out courses. I think that you and I could probably agree that a lot of institutions that we work with, their most popular major is in undecided.
Yeah.
I think it's more about helping them to align their goals, values, and passions within their broader life and their broader life path. And, utilizing that design thinking that Adrienne was talking about and the principles surrounding that to empower students to take charge of their journey. I think that can be really valuable to transfer students specifically as we kind of think about the different hurdles that they encounter when they come into new institutions, such as just finding their way and finding their group. I think the typical response from those transfer students, usually when I talk to them about it, is intrigue and optimism. A lot of transfer students are really excited about the idea of having a structured framework to guide them, especially ones that focus on building connections and creating a sense of community. And I think that our life design program really helps create that for students, especially transfer students. And they do often express relief just knowing that the program can help them make the most of their time at their new institution while addressing the challenges like feeling disconnected or unsure of their next steps.
Yeah. And that's so important to, even if it's something else in your back pocket, it's just another thing to help ease the concerns of, because you might get to a working adult that doesn't have all this extra time, but maybe they already have some of these professional personal references but you might talk to someone who's 19, 20 years old that doesn't know, some of the simple things, about like the different professions that are out there and maybe what types of work, professional organizations that they can get a part of or what alumni that they can get set up with. So, from the similar viewpoints that I have in my role, that would be nice just to have something like that in my back pocket for sure. So, Adrienne, we've brought up advising at this point. We've brought up like the big change to the career services you guys have on campus. And obviously this is something you've been talking about, professional references and things. So like, it sounds like there's maybe some overlap with these areas, even Zach talking about the compass and the GPS. So how does your program integrate with a student's more or less like their academic pursuits and maybe their external career planning or external to your office, I should say?
Right. So we work really closely with our peers in academic advising, in the Clean Career Hub, and within the academic colleges. And our deciding student program here at BGSU is housed within the Radbill Center. So that is one population that we work with really intentionally. But I say frequently that life design isn't just for picking a major, right? It's also for exploring curiosities. And it's also really great if you're driven and have a really clear path, because then how do you really maximize that? And so when we think about how we work with advising or how we work with the Career Hub, it's the life design approach and what's happening here in the Radbill Center is a great kind of starting point to sort of think about how do all of these pieces map together. And so we aren't replacing an academic advisor. Those folks know the degree requirements, the nuances of what it takes to navigate that academic path. And our career colleagues are really honed in on the industry and internships and trends and employers and all of those things. And so we really focus on one, sort of just helping students to kind of establish what's most important to them in their college experience, so that then we can refer and connect them to those other pieces of campus. And also then secondarily, how are we helping them build the skills? So I'm not going to tell you you should be this major or you shouldn't be this major, but we are going to talk about, self-awareness and building the problem-solving skills and the interpersonal skills that you're going to need to continue to navigate that. We talk a lot about prototyping. So in design thinking, prototyping is, mocking up a product or a storyboard for a movie or whatever that may be. And so in life design, we talk about every experience in college. Think about it like a prototype. So when you take a class, when you have an informal interview, a conversation with someone in a professional field, when you join a student organization, when you maybe engage in a particular internship or co-op, look at all of those as prototypes. So what did you learn? What did you like about it? What did you not like about that? And then how can you adjust and adapt from there? And so I think that's also a piece that's really important for transfer students. And we've worked with Zach and his colleagues to even have a section of the course specific to transfer students. And that's really for two reasons. One, students are coming in with credits already, right? With a path already started. And so it's really important to be intentional about where are you, what are you pivoting? Are you continuing on the same path, right? How do you map out both the academic piece that you're working with, other colleagues on campus, but also making sure that you're able to connect, why are you here at BGSU and how do we help make sure you can be connected to those experiences? The other piece of it, I remember a student that I worked with at Dayton, I don't know, this was quite a few years ago before I came here to BGSU, and he was a transfer student, and I will never forget this analogy. He told me when he first transferred in, he felt like he was standing outside the window looking in. Like the other students already had their place, they already had things figured out, they had friend groups or, whatever, right? And he was bringing a different set of experiences. And so I think the other important part about life design, and not just in our office, but all of our colleagues on campus, is how do we really help our transfer students make those connections? Let's not assume they know how this system works, or that they know that these student organizations exist, or that these funding opportunities exist for someone who's also working a full-time job, right? Whatever those things may be. So it's really just around maximizing all the opportunities that a college education has to offer.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And the intentionality with transfer students is, Zach and I'm sure scream at the moon sometimes, because that's like really what makes them feel comfortable and welcome on campus. So that class, that's awesome to teach it specifically for transfer students. So really, like, let's say I am a transfer student and I'm coming in with a year or two of credit, is really and this could be for either of you, is really the best advice is to get to life design as early as possible. Because obviously, like, in a perfect world, you'd probably get every single freshman coming through I don't know if you have the capacity for 12 life coaches maybe at some point. But so for a transfer student, maybe since they're on that abbreviated timeline, is that usually the advice is to, hey, your first semester, get over to life design?
Yeah, so I think Zach and friends over in admissions highlight us frequently. Again, we talk a lot about designing your BGSU team. So it's not about any one person at BGSU that has all the answers or is going to, create this magical experience for our students. It takes a village. And so life design is, just one particular resource that we want to make sure students have connection to. So actually, I believe there's an email in my inbox about what email we are going to be sending to our transfer students who are coming in January. I think I've even gone so far at certain orientation events to stand on the stage and say, you just got an email this morning, reply yes if you'd like to be connected to our team. And so again, you know, some of our students have already, you know, built really strong connections here on campus and aren't fazed by that, but we really just want to make sure that, you know, no one's getting lost in the shuffle. And so I say frequently, my job is to help students find their place and find their people. And if you haven't found it yet, please come to the Radville Center.
Awesome. All right, Zach, we're gonna, your last question's kind of loaded, so turn it over to you. Really, what I'm kind of searching for are there any challenges that transfer students face that life design at BGSU can kind of help address? And then are you at some point looking to include life design maybe into partnerships with your community college partners?
Yeah, so I'll tackle the first part of the question first.
Yeah.
So I would say absolutely. I think just thinking generally about transfer students and the problems that they face, they've got a wide range of challenges, from transferring credits effectively to finding a sense of belonging and understanding how their education fits into their long-term goals. I think Life Design does a really great job at helping address these concerns by giving students a framework to tackle that uncertainty, identify their goals, and create actionable plans. I really love the classes that we offer to our transfer students. Really love that Adrienne and the team over there committed to that and is offering that to transfer students, because I think it really emphasizes building connections like Adrienne was talking about, which is really critical for students who might feel isolated when they transition. But also not only for those students that feel isolated, the folks who are just looking for their new community when they transition to the institution. They might be that individual who finds it really easy to, you know, make a new community, but life design, like Adrienne mentioned, can be a part of that. I would say, as for the partnerships with community colleges, we're definitely always exploring different ways to collaborate with them. We do a lot of lunch and learns and different types of informational events, and I would love to explore what life design looks like in those spaces to just bring those types of ideas to community college counselors and more broadly their staff.
Yeah, and I think that just we're spitballing right now, right? For for you guys, like, and maybe this is a perception or a, you know, something that Zach and I would share, is that we are so, we're the front doors, right, in admissions to university. And so much of our work happens in front of the door that we help students maybe not necessarily hold their hands, but we help them as much as we can to get into the door, into this house, right? And then we focus, then we go back out into the front yard and we try to get the next group of students through the front door that we're not necessarily, we know there's a lot of great people inside the house, but we just hope that they're embraced in a sense and they're helped in the ways that we tell them that they can be, and that we know that some students are. So when you can tell them that, like, hey, one of the first rooms in this house, it's going to be about this life design program and stuff, I think it's just another way for students to feel embraced and assisted once they're on campus. And when you're, you know, maybe it's not literally built into like a legal agreement, right? I'm not saying that it needs to do something like that, but when you're talking to a community college counselor, I mean, like, they can say, we know Zach and he's a really great guy. Also, we know that you're going to be, aside from your academic advisor, there's these other people on campus that can kind of bear hug you while you're here. Maybe bear hug's not the right answer or the right terminology, but there's people there that will really help move you through the process, and you're not just going to come to this big campus in the middle of a cornfield. Just kidding. But that's since we have some Northeast Ohio and some Northwest Ohio rivalry right now, but we're MAC rivals, but we're also friends. Anyway, just a counselor, even knowing that at the community college, I think is a great, because maybe a student is kind of used to that more hands-on attention in a big university might throw them off to some extent. So having a program like Life Design in your back pocket, Zach, is, I'm a little jealous for sure. And then I think, so my last big question is for Adrienne. What is kind of your long-term goals for the Life Design program at BGSU?
Thanks. Yeah, so we like big goals around here. So one of the things that we spoke into existence a few years ago is that by next fall, 100% of our incoming students would have some formal introduction to life design. So that could be a course, that could be a workshop, that could be some, direct element. And so what that has meant, first of all, I'd like to say we are at 75%, almost exactly right now, which was our goal for this fall. So, Zach and our colleagues at admissions have done an incredible job of selling life design. And so if our students are coming to BGSU with that intent, we have to make sure we're delivering on that. And so what we have essentially taken is the best analogy I have is a franchise model. And so how have we built little franchisees across campus? And so with our academic partners, where we can infuse life design in lots of different ways. So whether that's in our Leadership Institute, our Schmidt College of Business has integrated life design into their Intro to Business course. Our colleagues in criminal justice have done the same. We have several academic partners that have infused it that way. And so again, to get to 100%, you can't do that with just 12 life design coaches or, or even more than that. And so how do we really make it an intentional part of the university experience? And so that has meant working with faculty and staff colleagues across campus. Our admissions team has done different workshops and trainings with us so that they feel really equipped to even start some of those conversations with students before they even get here. So by the time they even get to my team, they're already thinking more intentionally about what they're looking for out of their BGSU education. So just feeling really fortunate in our attempts to, continue to scale in that way. The other piece of it is also how we have been part of a more global life design community. So I mentioned earlier that it started at Stanford. At this point, I believe it's more than 500 universities across the globe that have done training from Stanford.
Wow.
And many are infusing it in small ways, in a first-year experience course, in a career services area. But there are several of us, and I can confidently say that BGSU is one of probably the top 5 as far as scale and how we've infused it as a university, but also thinking about, just because there are peers from other universities listening to this podcast, of how do we start to leverage these opportunities and programs like this across the higher ed landscape. So how do we start to look at trends and things, and what are we learning about student success, and what are we learning about our students now, and how does that actually connect to life design or design thinking, or the ways we're approaching that with our students, and how can we learn from that to really make the best experience? Something, I don't know if you all say this, but I think sometimes we talk about, competing universities. They're only competition until the student enrolls, right? Then we want all of our students to have an amazing experience from whatever college they're at. And so how do we continue as a university to, foster those conversations with our peers and really think about it from a holistic student success model?
Yeah, I think a couple of the big things you've echoed throughout this entire podcast is just being intentional, getting the word out. The relationships are so important. And obviously just having those, it does take a village at the end of the day, and just recognizing that this office can help, but also that you're leaning on other people to do the job as well. So that's really awesome. So is there anything that either of you think that we missed? I know that I give you some questions and I'm coming from my own vantage point. So if there's anything else that you'd like to add for the broader audience, I would say, let's talk about it now.
The only thing that I would maybe add is I've been fortunate enough to be able to connect with folks from lots of other universities. And sometimes I hear, oh, you're so lucky that you got to, create this big giant program, or that this is happening. And so I would just say something that we can apply to higher ed is what we also tell our students, which is take action and start with something small and meaningful. And so if we tell our students to try one small experience, to think about what that might mean for their future, I think just how do we also practice that as professionals in higher ed as well, right? How can we do something small and meaningful to take action in our own sphere of influence that can help make a difference with whatever group of students or peers or, kind of sphere of control that we're working in?
Wise words, for sure. Zach laughed. He's just on mute and he doesn't want to share his positive laughter with everyone.
No, the only thing I'd say is I'd echo what Adrienne said. Some of our most successful projects that we've had within the transfer team have started out as really small things that we worked on maybe once a week that grew into larger projects because of how much success they had. So just wanted to echo what she had to say.
Nice. Small wins for sure. All right, guys. Well, this has been a really awesome conversation. I had a really great time. Just from a OTC vantage point, I think this is our last episode of the year. So we really thank you for another successful, I guess, calendar year. We're in higher education, so I shouldn't say that as we're only halfway through the academic year. But from everyone at OTC, I'd just like to say happy holidays. I hope you guys enjoy this. I know the weather's not always great, but time with friends and family and such. And we'll meet you guys in the new year. Thanks.
Thanks for having us on. Happy New Year.
Thanks.